Hello. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay. Cool. So I'm Kelsey, as you just heard. Welcome to our panel. If everyone could go around, introduce yourselves, say where you work. Who wants to go first? Ken, you want to go first?
Guess
You
I
go first.
drew the short straw.
Yeah, you go first.
My name is Ken Reeves. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources for an organization called Performance Food Group. We're based out of Richmond, Virginia. We're the second largest food service distributor in the USA. We have about 37,000 employees. And so I do all things HR. So good to be here.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Murphy. I'm the Vice President of People Experience at UnitedHealth Group. Most people know us for our UnitedHealth Care, kind of the insurance part, but we also have another part of our department that's called Optum that has clinics and a bunch of kind of tech and financial services for a total of 450,000 employees across the globe. So I lead their people experience team, which includes listening and assessments and research, and also just bringing all that to life and really driving action across the organization.
Hi, everybody. I'm Leanne Hyduk. I lead the tech HR team as well as employee experience at DoorDash. We're about 20,000 people globally. Most folks probably know us for delivering food and groceries and things, but really our goal is to empower local economies and find new use cases to do that. I actually have been at DoorDash for about 7.5 years, so saw us grow from 200 to about 20,000, and I'm based here in Austin, Texas.
Hello, my name is Jared Murray. I'm the founder of Annam. We work with employers to allow them to provide housing benefits to their workforce. Their employees can save money when buying homes, renting homes, and on home goods and services.
Penelope Talbot Kelly, I'm VP GM of B2B at Earnin. What that means is I lead most of our B2B efforts and partnerships really specifically to building relationships with employers. Earnin is a company that focuses on financial wellness, with our flagship product having been on-demand pay. We've also subsequently built a number of different other features to support that. And I'm actually based out of San Francisco.
Okay, awesome. So Ken, I'm coming back to you.
All right.
So your company employs many frontline workers whose jobs can be taxing. Can you tell us how your managers stay connected with how your employees are doing and what they need? And then Leanne, if you want to take it after him.
Okay, sure. Our frontline workers, it's a tough job. The main two, we sell groceries and we deliver. And so our managers are really held accountable for having regular one-on-ones with their people. We believe that well-being starts at the top. You can have all the programs in the world, but if you aren't walking the talk and doing things with your people, then it's all a check the box exercise. So every member of our leadership team every month goes out and meets with our selectors, our drivers. I get up at wee hours of the night because when you're delivering groceries, it's a round the clock thing. And so we will go to different facilities. I may be there at 1 o'clock in the morning, just meeting with drivers as they're going out on their routes, saying thank you, we sure appreciate you, what's on your mind, what's going on. So those are some of the things that we do to make sure that we stay connected with the heart and the soul of what we do on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think those are all such great points, and being there and present and folks knowing that you're available and to give feedback is great. I think another thing we really take very seriously is just engagement surveys, trying to make sure they're frequent, quarterly, that we action them, that we work really closely with leaders to deeply understand what people are saying, to take quick and swift action, and to empower people to take it, to ensure folks know it's a safe space and we're actually going to do something about it. I think very similarly, getting the team boots on the ground, making sure managers are enabled, that they know how to have conversations, that they feel supported, and more broadly, that we have a lot of different forums for people to give feedback in ways that are safest to them, whether it's a hotline, someone in person, a leader, a survey, et cetera. So a lot of different forums for which you're getting feedback and making sure you hear it and you action it really quickly.
Well, and when you get that feedback, do you feel that a lot of people are using those surveys and participating?
Yeah, we are really lucky. Our participation rate's in the high 80s, often 89+%. I think we do them quarterly, and I think there's a debate on how frequent makes the most sense. We change up the questions, but yeah, people are taking it, and hopefully we can continue the flywheel because we're listening and we're empowering managers. at the local level. For example, it used to be something that HR was really hands-on with, but now we're able to use AI to create every manager their own actionable survey that's a page long with a handful of action items they can take. So just trying to make it as easy as possible to listen.
That's amazing. Does anyone have anything to add? We good? We're moving on. Okay, Stephanie, I'm coming to you. A lot of workers have benefits and total rewards that they're not even aware of. How do you help employees become aware of the things that are at their disposal?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think because we're a healthcare company, we do this really well for our customers in marketing. And so we've been in the last few years trying to figure out how do we turn that more internally. And so one of the things, similar to how Leanne was mentioning in terms of listening, lots of having conversations, lots of understanding the needs across our employee population. Well-being looks different to everyone. For me, as a full-time Uber driver of a 15-year-old child, flexibility to get to track meets and basketball and all these things are important to me. And then I think other people have different needs, right? And so how do you figure out what are the needs of the people and what are things that you can do at an enterprise level? Because you can't fix everyone's problems. So what are some overall programs you can put in place? And then tell those stories. One of the things we did was recently did the One Pass. And so there was where everyone could go and you get One Pass and you can do all these different gyms and classes and things like that. And then there was one person that we found out through just having conversations that he had done the One Pass and lost 150 pounds. Oh, wow. And so we were like, this is a story. Let's tell people like, hey, this is available to you. And this is something that really impacts people's lives. And so we used it internally. He shared his story multiple times. It was on our internet page and just getting out there because a lot of people didn't even know we had that offering. And so how can you find some of those success stories? Another one was in education where someone that didn't have her degree yet used our education benefits to go further and graduate with not just her bachelor's, but then her master's after that. And so she shared her story. And so using the storytelling to really get the benefits out there resonates more than just sending an email saying, here's your list of benefits that we offer.
I got a follow-on question for that. What medium of communication do you find to be sort of the most effective? Because I feel like in today's world, we are totally inundated with information overload.
As many as you possibly can, right? And so we do we've got, like I mentioned, we've got clinics, right? So it's posters, it's in the break rooms, it's the emails, it's the presentations, it's getting our CEO. He loves to talk about these things, to share those stories on all hands. And so it's like the more you can share it in many different places to reach the diverse group of people that we have, the better.
Well, and after you shared that story about the man who used ClassPass or One Pass and lost all that weight, did you see like an uptick in people who were like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing?
We did. I'm a data person. That was the first thing I asked was, is this making an impact? And yes, it absolutely did.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so next one's for Penelope. So one of the biggest issues among American workers is that they're living paycheck to paycheck. How are you helping employees plan for the immediate future? And can you tell us, how living paycheck to paycheck is affecting everyone's stress and well-being at work?
Sure. So I think I could share a lot of statistics, but there's probably 3 that come to mind that at least set the stage about the challenges that are really facing our workers today. So it's about 78%, almost 80% of working Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That is the majority of us living paycheck to paycheck. We're also seeing that 49%, so that's almost half, of employees really finding it difficult to meet household expenses on a given month. And we're also seeing that 28%, so that's almost 1/3 of employees, often or always are running out of money in between paychecks. So that is sort of the reality that we're operating in. And I think sort of how does that translate to the business? It's not just a personal financial stress challenge these days, it does really impact us at work. We usually see this sort of manifest in 3 ways. One, we see employees with reduced productivity. If you think about it, you're stressed out about your finances, you're going to spend time worrying about how you're going to make ends meet. And we actually see that employees typically spend 3+ hours a week worrying about their financial stress, which is very meaningful. We also see higher absenteeism. The statistic here that I like to use is that 34%, we often see an increase in absenteeism and tardiness just as a result of being financially stressed. And we know that has a direct impact on the bottom line. And then lastly, higher turnover. Financially stressed employees are 2 times more likely to leave for another employee. So, with increased turnover, that also has a direct impact for organizations. And so when we think about how is financial stress showing up in the organizations, it's a lot of different ways, but ultimately it impacts the bottom line.
Well, and I think too, 401ks aren't enough. Like, I feel like the standard package of benefits that you get are not enough. And like, I'm in the journalism industry, so I've seen a lot of turnover and a lot of people just being like, I can't do this. I have to go to PR. This is horrible. And I feel like a lot of that also has to do with burnout. Can you talk about burnout at all? Especially post-pandemic, I feel like burnout has been the thing that's on everyone's minds.
Burnout maybe less so. What I can say is that the pandemic has really brought on, I think, increased pressure. We've seen higher inflation, and it's become more and more of a need. To your point, I like that slogan, the 401k is just no longer enough. When we think about financial wellness, it's probably good to define that financial wellness is ensuring that your employees can meet both their short and long-term goals. So when I think of 401k, I think of much more of a longer-term horizon. But when we think about those short-term financial requirements, that's where providing a number of different tools to employees can be really beneficial. One would be an example of on-demand pay, right? Bridging the gap between your pay cycle. That can have a tremendous impact on folks being able to pay their bills on time, avoid overdrafts, and really meet their obligations, thus reducing that stress, which would inevitably lead to burnout, right? That's just another thing with all these increased demands towards employees at the workplace.
Right. And Jarek or Ken, I don't know if you guys wanted to speak to that question at all. Financial stress, living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we work in the housing space, right? And this is, one of your employees' largest recurring costs. You can't get away from it. Doesn't matter if you're Jeff Bezos or work within his fulfillment center, it's the largest cost that you're going to have to deal with, right? So, our perspective is if you can bring that down 15 or 20%, then ultimately your employees will have obviously, a better mental health situation as it relates to financial stress, but actually more disposable income to spend on other things, be that childcare, food. Maybe they can start to take care of some of these other items that were legacy benefits because, hey, I can do it myself, right? So that's generally our perspective.
I would agree with much of what has already been said. I think that when we talk about finances and financial stress, we try to make sure that our employees understand it from a total rewards perspective. All of the things that they pay for versus what the company kicks in on their behalf. So every year we put out a total reward statement so people understand, wow, yes, I took X home, but this is everything that the organization is putting into my financial well-being and everything on my behalf. And so, but I agree with everything that's already been said. And one of the things we also do every couple of years, we make sure that we're competitive in the market. We do market data surveys, and if we need to adjust people's pay, we're very proactive about doing that because we all living here in Austin. It's pretty cheap to live in Austin, right? But with and everything that's migrating, the facility that I run HR out of is in Temple, and I'm seeing the migration of Austin going north to Temple and everything in between, and we think that people coming to Temple, it's not going to cost you that much to live in Temple, right, which is not Austin, but it is getting more expensive to live everywhere around the Austin area. So we make sure that we're proactive in terms of doing those compensation surveys and making sure that we're in the market.
Yeah, Ken, and I think you bring up a great point with this unaffordability proliferating everywhere, right? It existed before the pandemic, but post-pandemic, people had much more autonomy to live wherever they wanted to be. And, the idea that real estate has been hyper local has really been blown up. Housing pricing now is really based on who would like that home. So it doesn't matter if you're in Austin or San Francisco. If they say, hey, someone in New York wants this home, well, then that's the price, whatever they can bear, right? And it's basically raised the tide everywhere. So once affordable areas instantaneously, within 6 months, no longer become affordable.
Right.
Right.
Well, and it has to be such like a catch-up process for companies. Like these things are happening so fast. How are you guys able to play catch-up quickly enough?
It's $1 million question.
Well, I can maybe take a quick step. I do think it's being nimble and adaptable, being comfortable with the fact that what you did last year isn't going to be what you're going to do the next year, and helping employees through that change. Making sure people know what you're adding, what's offered, maybe if you often need to take from somewhere to give something new. So really trying to go deep on surveys, spend the year figuring it out. The other thing I'll say that I think companies, DoorDash included, are getting better at is just having flexibility. Some benefits are, for example, we have a wellness benefit that's a credit where you can use it for childcare, you could use it for housing, you can use it for medical, just making sure you have opportunities to flex and meet your employees where you're at. So I just think you're never going to be perfect, but being okay to make changes and make them quickly is definitely advantageous.
Well, and I would add to that companies can't fix everything. We can put all these policies in place, we can provide all the offerings, but a lot of it is on leadership development and making sure managers understand the needs of their people and make sure managers are communicating those things that are available to their people as well. I think of like I mentioned earlier, just different needs in terms of well-being. Managers have to know that. And Kelsey, you mentioned burnout. It is the fact that we are all humans and we have so many other things going on in our heads on a day-to-day basis that causes cognitive load on top of our jobs. And so I think COVID did a good job in some regards of letting us all kind of take the veil off, where we had to realize we were all humans. You saw babies and crying like dogs in the background. Right? You saw all these different things. We're like, oh wait, we're all human. We all have other things outside of work. And I think as the years have gone on, though, you started to see that shift back to organizations and productivity. And so how do we reel our managers back in to like, remember, these are still people with lives that have other things going on that are leading to the burnout that's not just their day-to-day workload.
Well, and I feel like taking the veil off I'm going to steal that. That's such a nice, that is exactly what happened. That's very good. Very nice. Jarek, I want to talk about your housing stuff. Why is this? Please explain it. It's very exciting, very cool. Why is this a benefit that other companies should consider?
Yeah, so I guess the best way to look at it is that housing benefits aren't necessarily new. Employers have done it for a long time. Housing and employment has always been kind of correlated. I think the big difference is that, before us, employers had to do it themselves. Right, so it was effectively, going out negotiating with your optometrist, dentist, et cetera, on behalf of just your workforce, trying to, manage that, administer that, scale that. Virtually impossible. There are companies out there, obviously the Facebooks, that can build something, right? But what we've done is created, this approach where we're a third-party comprehensive solution that fits directly within your benefit stack, priced like the rest of your benefits, right? So it's not going to break the bank. And then we've created it and leveraged this through technology to allow your employees to have autonomy. Would love to talk about this more, but the short of it is we have over 25 benefits that, we survey, work with the employers, their workforce to understand their needs. And then we create more or less a budget together around that, $300 per employee over the course of the year, right? That can be allocated on our platform. And then your employees can get everything they need, from saving money on rent directly, saving money on buying homes, and then everyone who's owned a home say, hey, it's not an access problem, but your costs don't stop, right? So we have things for repairs, maintenance, contractor pricing, wholesale pricing on furniture, appliances. It's, as I said, very comprehensive, very broad, right? And the way we see it is, again, housing is the fulcrum asset of life. You remove housing, everything falls apart, right? Yeah. And there's plenty of data that shows that, housing has correlation to personal financial wealth, right? Correlations to actually health and your physical well-being. I believe the healthcare industry has determined housing as being a social determinant of health. You look at sustainability, top of the charts. Equity, inclusion, there's a long storied history of how housing has been leveraged against certain cohorts to prevent access. And then obviously there's, when it comes to housing, safety, security, affordability, how that correlates to educational attainment and growth in your career. So from that standpoint, we see it as the super benefit, where if you have stable housing, everything else can really help. But if you don't have stable housing, things don't matter as much. And I think that's what we've been seeing in the media today, and the uproar and pain points around it.
Well, and I feel like, as a millennial, I feel like the conversation among my peers is we're never going to own homes. That's
Yes.
just not possible for us.
Sure.
What has been the response to this?
Yeah, I think you're kind of like dovetailing a very important, insight, being a millennial myself. The workforce today is comprised of, basically 4 different generations with no shared experiences, right? So you have, the baby boomers, you have Gen X, you have millennials, you have Gen Z. And in the past, there may be some commonalities where you could provide any benefit and it would hit 80%. Today, due to technology, those experiences are broadly different, right? And we see housing as really that equalizer, because baby boomers, they may be downsizing. They actually want the things that the Gen Zs want. Gen Xers could be taking care of aging parents, right? Which is a housing concern. You have millennials that are in family formation looking to, we need to upsize or change the way we live. And obviously Gen Zs, while they may be willing to just pick up and leave, that is a housing problem, right? So we've created a solution to address that. And hopefully, through our data, we're able to reveal the outcomes to employers to say, hey, 5 people that didn't own homes now. They're saving X amount of dollars this year. This is the impact that you're having on your workforce. So that's our general approach and, kind of our insights around housing as a benefit.
I kind of have a little follow-up question for you.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that I'm in the Leadership Austin Essential program, and they give us data about Austin. And one of the things we recently learned was that there is a 16-year life expectancy difference if you live on the west versus the east of Austin.
Totally.
So when considering housing, are you also considering location of some of the housing?
Absolutely. So when we survey an employer and work with their workforce and survey the workforce, we survey them separately, because the truth is that many times, even though leadership wants to help, they may not know the nuanced needs, right? And us being able to come in as a third party, we can actually hold a mirror up to them and say, I know you are focused on this segment of your workforce, and that is a problem, but it's actually 10x that, and here are the solutions that we believe can help. And we will work with your employees using technology to help them create a roadmap to get from where they are to where they want to be, right? And then we can report back on that periodically to leadership, again, through our platform, so they can stay abreast with those changes without, again, having to administer, be involved, and obviously severances and people changing their lifestyle as it relates to work is a part of employment. No one loses their house, right? Like you move on, you're not like, give me the keys. And that was like a core tenet based on my own personal experience that we needed to implement within our strategy. So we definitely think about that. We definitely implement those strategies.
Can I make one point
Go ahead.
And this is, I don't think this is off on a tangent, but during COVID, one of the things that we assume is that people want to work from home, right? It's a big benefit. Well, we actually had people who lived in certain areas and neighborhoods who wanted to come to work.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was a social aspect to work and well-being that was positive that may not have been so positive at home.
Totally.
Yes.
So I found that an interesting dynamic, that we actually had people who wanted to come to work because that's where they felt their well-being was enhanced.
Absolutely.
By coming to work.
Yeah. With all these different modalities of work today, working from home, flexible commuting, we believe that, providing a benefit where, again, where you spend the majority of your time, the majority of your capital goes to, easily, if you're just talking about renting or mortgages, over 35%. When you start to talk about furniture, repairs, maintenance, taxes, fees, insurance, 50%. And it's almost been this acceptable evil that everyone's just come to terms with. Like, hey, this is just the price.
Right.
And we feel some type of way about that, right? Again, I think you're spot on, supporting your employees the way you can, depending on where they want to be, for sure.
Yeah, come to Austin and come talk to our city leaders about all of that.
Oddly enough, politicians love us, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
It's like housing, businesses.
Yeah, because housing is definitely a big issue here in
Sure.
Austin. Leanne, I know that we were talking before and you said that DoorDash from the time you started was 200 people and now it's 20,000?
That's right.
Can you talk about some of the keys to establishing well-being and total rewards programs when your workforce is expanding that fast?
Yeah, I think just buckle up for change and be real comfortable that what you start with just isn't going to be what you end with. I think in the beginning, it's okay to do things that aren't super scalable, to be a little bit scrappy. One thing I do think we realized early was you have to be cognizant not to overdo it in the early days because it's very hard to take things back as you scale and grow and maybe cannot afford them. So be really thoughtful about what you can spend, what the future looks like, or what the future could look like and how this would scale over time. But I think more than anything, it's just evolved a bunch from no longer really hyper-focused on the pay mix and benefits in terms of your health benefits. But as our workforce has gotten bigger and more diverse, thinking about mental health benefits, thinking about coaching benefits, really doing surveys year over year to understand what's working, what isn't, and again, being really comfortable flexing over time. I think as we've grown, if we can find things that are flexible for different people. For example, we use a vendor called Modern Health, and they have everything from financial wellness coaching to counselors you can work with, career coaches. You get to pick what kind of coach you need and a whole bunch of different resources. And it's been one of our most highly used benefits. So I think increasingly trying to understand, even with pay, ideally, is there a world where people can pick more between, we're a very equity-based company, but pay or stock or bonus, what does that look like? So long way of saying, I think you need to be flexible. And I think the more that you can give folks autonomy to pick some things within your benefits, the more it will reach, to your point, many different generations that are working for your company now.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, just want to make sure no one had anything else to say. Okay. Ken, coming back to you, employee needs and expectations tend to evolve over time as new generations enter the workforce. How have you observed those needs changing in recent years?
Well, when I entered the workforce 100 years ago,
No.
the only thing I asked my boss was, "What do you want done?" And I went and I did it. Right? Pretty simple. But what I'm finding with the younger generation is that they want to do a good job, but they want to be developed. They're like, "What is being at your company going to do for me in the long run?" So you have to have, and it starts at the top, it starts with leadership. You have to have people in leadership positions who are willing and able to develop people. The younger generation also wants to know, if I'm going to come work for your organization, what is your organization doing in the community? So they want to work for an organization also that has purpose, that has meaning. How can I quantify what you all are actually doing in the workforce? And so they're just really, they want to be able to bring their whole self to work and know that they can be comfortable being themselves at work. And that's why I go back to leadership. You have to have leaders who understand that leadership is not a cookie cutter. You can't treat every person who works for you the same. There is no, people ask you all the time, what's your leadership style? Well, my leadership style is whatever my people need me to be. I'll go back to my football days. I was not a guy who reacted well to a coach grabbing by the face mask, using a lot of four-letter words. Just let me know what you need me to do, and I'm going to do it. So everybody who works for you reacts to certain things differently. Okay, so I could go on forever, but in terms of what they need from us, the younger generation, that's why it's so important to understand and have one-on-one communication with them and adapt your style to what's going to get the most out of them. But they want development and they want purpose.
Yeah, I was simply going to say, I believe many times I agree 100% with what you said. And oftentimes, in maybe different arenas, the word soft may be thrown out, or some of these words there. What I feel is it's like more of this alignment with a company's ethos. To your point, they're looking for a partner. That doesn't necessarily mean from a pay standpoint, but it's just the basic appreciation of like, hey, I'm a human being and I want to be here and work on something. If I'm going to take my time, I want to work on something that actually has meaning in this world, right? And I think we're better for it, frankly.
Can I add one more thing to what you just said? You made me think of something.
No, go ahead.
I go back 100 years ago when I came to the workforce. I just want to know what to do. I didn't want to know what was the value. These days, they want to. Ask them to do something. They want to. Well, why? Why am I doing this? And you live like, no, that's not going to work. And so they just want to know. It's like change management. Anytime you go through any type of change, you have to let people know why we're changing, what's your role in this change, and what is the value of this change. And so I just when you were talking, Jared, you made me think of that. And so I just wanted to share that quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I was going to say, it's the same thing with celebrities, right? We want to know who Taylor Swift is voting for now. So we want to know what's going on at work, too. And I don't know where that came from, but everyone is more empowered these days. So,
Right.
yeah. Penelope, one of the upsides of the new popularity of financial wellness programs is that there are some measurable improvements among workers who take advantage of them, including improved credit scores. Could you tell us how that connection works?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'll just sort of acknowledge there's a common theme amongst everyone here. We've all talked about empowering the employee, meeting them where they're at. You're offering a variety of different solutions, whether or not you're renting or buying. And I think it's really similar for financial wellness. And then I'll get to sort of the outcomes. And why I say that is financial wellness is not just one thing is going to solve all problems. It's sort of a sum of all parts. So when I think about what does a holistic financial wellness program entail, it would have a number of different tools. Think about you're giving your employees a toolbox. They can pull those out whenever they need. So what would be in that toolbox? One would probably be a tool that would allow them to bridge the gap between their payroll cycles. And so the more commonly known on-demand pay, as an example. I would also expect to see tools that help them avoid unnecessary fees, like overdraft fees, and sort of helping them to avoid that on a regular basis, because we all know that's a huge industry and everyone can get caught up in that very quickly. I would also think that you'd want to have tools that are helping you create better habits. And what I mean by that is encouraging savings, helping you pay your bills on time. And then I think what sort of closes that in is helping you helping the employee learn the connection between certain behaviors they can or cannot take to help their credit score, and learning those relationships. And so when you take sort of more of a holistic approach and give the employee the tools for them to use when they need it, when they might need it, I think you can get to some really, really powerful outcomes. For our Earn-In members, we've served over 4 million Americans. We see some really compelling stats, and I'll just share them with you. Our members report a 65% decrease in overdrafts fees. That is absolutely massive. An overdraft fee is typically, $20 to $35. We see a 40% decrease in payday loans. That's sort of more the alternative to a shorter term cash requirement and often is quite predatory. We see a 62% increase in on-time bill payments. And then to get to that point around credit scores, when you're starting to build a lot better behaviors, you're paying your bills on time, you're avoiding these overdrafts, our members are seeing that 40% of them are reporting an improved credit score, which is absolutely massive and actually connects to your world on the housing piece, right? Credit scores open up a huge amount of freedom in our country. And so that's what I mean by that. There's sort of a holistic approach that the sum of parts creates some really powerful outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, okay, and we only have a couple minutes left, so we're going to go down the line. Could each of you leave the audience with one takeaway that can help their companies offer more inclusive support for their workers? I don't know who wants to start. Okay.
I think you've heard it echoed with a couple of us on the listening piece. And so I know like at UnitedHealth Group, we do probably 4 or 5 different surveys specific to total rewards growth. After we do open enrollment, we do a survey of 20,000 people. After we do kind of our medical plans, we do another survey. Then we do a growth and rewards survey. And so because similar to some of the other questions, everything's constantly changing and expanding, we're constantly listening and getting that feedback so we can adjust and change with it. That's at the enterprise level. At the leader level, we encourage all of our leaders to sit down and do listening sessions. And so from the CEO on down, our CEO sometimes does 2 listening sessions a week with just a random group of employees just to hear stories. How are things going? And just to listen. Sometimes surveys are really helpful, but they don't give you the full context.
Yes.
And so putting some of those stories to the data is critical. And so we have leaders do listening sessions across all of 450,000 employees, just sitting down, having conversations, and then synthesizing that data to say, okay, what are the themes we're hearing? What's the vibe of the employee this month? What's the survey data saying? What's the listening session data saying? All the different ways that we're collecting feedback and then merging that together to help shape our strategy and really drive change for the individual. One of the things that came out of that data was our CEO announced earlier this year a one-day holiday, of another extra day of a holiday. And it was specific because we heard that we weren't off for Juneteenth. And people in the comments, when people were telling stories about how not being off and having to use their PTO. So he created a floating holiday. So people that wanted to do Juneteenth, wanted to do other religious holidays. And so it was very inclusive way to give people the space they needed to really be able to use their PTO as they needed it.
Maybe I'll just jump on that because the sort of point that I would lead everyone here is, and it relates to financial stress and wellness, is really providing those forums where employees can actually feel comfortable talking about this. What we see is there's still within the workplace some element of stigma that exists around employees needing help with their finances. And so at a very quick point, I would just encourage to make sure that you are providing those anonymous surveys, those safe places where employees do feel comfortable voicing their concerns, because from what we see, there are almost 75% of employees who are saying they want help with their financial and personal finances.
Yeah, I think everyone's nailing it. I would simply say, excuse me, I would simply say that it really boils down to action, right? There's nothing more frustrating or annoying than to ask for feedback, provide that feedback, and then leadership kind of just like shrugs their shoulders, right? So like, there's intentionality in everything, and you get higher, results, responses on those surveys when there's trust there.
Yes.
Right? So it does boil down to leadership. All the different metrics and all the different ways to engage are great, but if the employee does not believe their outcomes will change because there's no trust, it's not going to matter. It's all performative, right? So action really, that's what I'd say is probably the crux.
Such incredible points. So much great stuff's already been said. I think the only thing I'll add is that flexibility is key in really trying to understand all of your employees. We, for example, have delivery couriers in international markets to machine learning engineers, and really trying to build programs and packages that are differentiated and work for all of these different people, knowing that what they need and what they want is different. And over time, that's going to change. So as much as you can build flexibility and differentiation, I think it's really meeting a global workforce where it's at.
Everything my esteemed colleagues said. Only thing I will add is if you are not doing it, one of the things that we started doing, which added a lot of value, we do skip level meetings. And so what a skip level meeting is, my president of the OPCO, he talks directly to my people about anything, about me, so it holds me accountable every day to lead in such a way that I'm not worried about what people are saying when I'm not in the room. Okay, so that's the only thing I would add to that.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all so much. You did great.